Hi, this is Tina with Cafe Crop, and today we are making a Get Well Soon card featuring tissue boxes on the outside as well as the inside. So hopefully you can see that there, little pop-up tissue box inside. So let's get started with the details. So we are going to start with our A2 card base. And we will have our mat. We're going to have 3 squares that we're going to use for our tissue box, and you can use any colors that you want, that you have scraps of that coordinate. The actual Get Well Soon, we printed it out on a computer. I couldn't find one the size that I wanted with the stamp. There might be one out there, I just couldn't find it. So I just sized it to fit across the front of a card, so it's actually 1 inch tall by 4 3/4 inches wide. I would just adjust your font, pick one that you like and adjust it to go almost across the width of the card, and then depending on how that cuts, just mat it accordingly when you get ready to actually put it together. And then for our inside piece, we're using 3 by 6. That way you can get several of them out of one piece of 12 by 12 cardstock, and you're not wasting any cardstock. We're going to score it, so hopefully you can see the score lines here. We're going to score it at 1.5, at 3, and at 4.5. And then on one of the 2 middle sections, you're just going to cut a small slit. And you can just use an X-Acto knife or something like that with a cutting mat, of course, underneath so you don't ruin any tables. And just cut a small slit there. The other piece or other thing that you do need for this one is you need a tissue. So just go over to your tissue box and pull a tissue out. And if it happens to be a 2-ply tissue, you're going to want to take it apart and just use one of the ply so you have a single sheet of it. Otherwise it gets a little thick and bulky to work with. Then take this, and this particular one was cut up from a little travel pack, so I just cut it into 4 of these little squares about that size. So maybe about 1.5 by 1.5 or 2 by 2. You just need 4 pieces approximately that size. Doesn't have to be measurement. So here's the pieces that I cut, and that's all we need. Just something like that. We don't need too much. And then the other thing you'll want on this one is some Scotch tape, or what we like to call one-sided tape. And then that's what we will use to actually attach the tissue to the back of the boxes here. The other thing I used was some different face stamps that I had. These happen to be from Peachy Keen stamps. There are a variety of different faces out there depending on the company that you might have faces with. So I used a sad face, a kind of in-between sad face, and then a happy face, because hoping the person is getting well and ready to feel better. So let's get started in actually making our card. So we'll start with our actual card base here, and we'll go ahead and put our yellow down on the card and have that done. And then we can go ahead and take our Get Well Soon. I've mounted it on a mat, and in this case, I didn't on this one, it's just flat. I did add some thin pop dots on this one just to give it a little extra lift. So that's an optional thing that you can do. Now, when I go and put my faces into my little tissue boxes and put the tissue on, what I want to do first is turn them all over and mark on the back of them where the top, because as soon as they fall, it's very easy to have your tissue box tissue out the side or out the bottom. So I'm going to take my pencil, look at the top here, and just make a mark so I know that's where I want my tissue to be. So I'll do that on all my pieces. And then I'm going to take a piece of my tissue, and this is really easy. There's no science to it, but just grab the middle and scrunch it up. So it kind of goes like that. Nothing fancy. So again, just grab the middle of it like that and scrunch it up. So there's no science to it, nothing fancy to do. Then I'm going to lay it right on top of where I drew that arrow, and I'm going to take a piece of one-sided tape, Scotch tape, and just tape that down. Now if you tape across more of the card, regular tape runner doesn't usually stick well to the tape, so I went ahead and put some tissue tape down on these just to make it easier for it to stick. Just pull those pieces off of there. And now what I like to do is I like to line up my tissue box that's on the left. So I line that up with my sentiment on the edge of my sentiment here. Then I take my tissue box that's going to go on the right and I line that one up so it's aligned along the bottom and along the far edge. And then I will take my center one and center it in between the two. If I try and center it and put it down before I've lined this one up, sometimes it can be too close this way, too close on the other side. So now I can just do that, and the front of my card is all done. And now we'll go to our inside piece. So for our inside piece, we're going to take this piece that we scored, the 3x6 piece, fold it on all of the edges, and first thing we're going to need to do is actually put our piece of tissue in. So I'm going to take that other piece of tissue, I'm just going to slide it in just a bit so that it's going to pop up, and take another piece of that one-sided tape and tape it down, because we don't actually want someone to pull it out. We just want it to show up correctly when our tissue box opens up. And this one actually has the hole in the wrong spot. It should be over here, so we're going to grab a new piece. And I've already got that put together. I didn't realize that. So now when we open this up, we want to make sure that our tissue box is actually going to open up and that the tissue is going to be at the top. So when we're placing this, make sure your tissue is going to be at the top of the fold or above the fold in your card. Easiest thing to do now is to turn our piece over. And so this shouldn't technically have the tissue here, but we're going to put our tape right on this edge. So you can take your tape runner or tissue tape, whichever you have, and you're going to want to put your tape just like that. And now, easiest thing to do is to line this up right here and put this down. And so make sure, of course, when you're doing this, that your tissue box part with your tissue is going to be at the top there. So this is lined up along here, my fold, along my fold, and then I can just put this piece under, fold it all together, and now when my card pops up, I have a tissue box with my tissue. And then you'll want to go ahead and fold it back the other way. Make sure to push it down. You may even want to take a bone folder right here, depending on how thick your cardstock is, and make sure that's nice and folded. And we are done, and we have our Get Well card, our little tissues. Now if you want, you can always leave the last tissue out of the smiley face one in hopes that they're all better. And I have my tissue box here, and I can write a little message and hope that whoever it is feeling better and gets well soon. Thanks for joining us today. Go ahead and click on the subscribe button that's just below this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Again, it's Tina from Cafe Crop. Find us on Facebook and our website. Thanks for joining us.